We are now being joined by Glenn Deason, who is a professor of international relations at the University of Southeastern Norway, and he's joining us live from Oslo. Thank you so much, Glenn, for joining us on the broadcast. First up, do tell me, where does this stalemate sort of a situation stands as of now? You know, just a couple of days back, Joe Biden says that it is going to stop the delivery of heavy bombs into Israel, but now this report comes up, and the ceasefire deals have actually not reached any conclusion. Where does it all stand as of now, and where do you see it going?
Well, first, have to be said, this is, I think this is quite significant because this signifies a bit of a split emerging between the United States and Israel. And none of the things Israel can do would be possible without American support, both the military support as well as the political cover. So this is quite significant that they're now recognizing that over the past 7 months that there has been at least possibly committed genocide as well. So this is a huge concern, of course, for the Biden administration, because they were hoping this could go away. But now they have, of course, these huge student protests. They have a huge part of the population being very uncomfortable with this policy, and all this is happening in an election year. It is also seeing its European allies beginning to be a bit more cautious because, as you mentioned, now that the Israelis are moving into Rafah, this is a huge escalation. This is down south where all the refugees have been fleeing. There's nowhere else to go. So the amount of massacres and the famine which is coming our way, this is effectively what the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, warned about, that all of these actions which could amount to genocide had to be halted. And indeed, the Americans now, as well as many of its allies, could be complicit in genocide, as they haven't done anything. And the fact, again, that this is all happening in advance of an election which could sink the Biden presidency, they are feeling pressure to effectively wash their hands of this and distance themselves a bit from the Israelis. Now, to what extent the Americans are able to do this still remains to be seen, given that their support is somewhat unconditional, it would seem. And also, this is largely a U.S. Israeli attack on Gaza, given they're supplying all the weapons. But this is the first indication that the Americans are at least starting to try to signal to their population and the rest of the world that they're not necessarily supporting anything that Israel does.
Now, while America rebukes Israel, but it hasn't really blocked arms. And as you mentioned, this is the election year for the United States of America. Keeping all of that in view, how much of an impact will the latest report have on actually stopping the arms going into Israel and perhaps going towards a ceasefire deal?
Well, that's the real question, because the way I see it, it could be two possible motivations behind this. One would be merely something for the public eye, that is marketing. The United States trying to distance itself, wash its hands of what could now be classified by the ICJ as a genocide. So this could merely be that the US want to have its protests on the record so it can not be held accountable. An alternative is also that the United States is attempting to put more pressure on the Netanyahu government to actually scale back what it's doing. But some have suggested they might as well trying to get the Netanyahu government switched. However, this fails to recognize that Netanyahu government widely supports, while it's not popular, the policies towards Gaza has a very wide support among the Israeli population, so it might not have that great of a significance. So it really remains to be seen what the objective of the United States is in this matter.
Glenn, to put very simply, is the international community buying this? Is the international community really buying this stance that the United States has come out and taken?
No, I can't speak on behalf of the international community, but I think this is quite obvious that the United States want to have it both ways. They still supply all the weapons, and they still want to note their objections to how these weapons are being used. So I think it seems very fake, artificial to the rest of the world, because they keep saying they want to put pressure on Netanyahu. They're trying to stop the massacres. But still, they're sending all the weapons. So this is why this is also to a large extent, if it is also an American genocide, because they're the one supplying the weapons. They could get us into this war tomorrow if they made a call and said no more weapons until you restrain yourself. The idea that Israel can be able to dictate to the United States that it should send weapons and the US should have no influence whatsoever over Israel, it doesn't really make much sense. So this whole, I think this logic is contested by more and more people, which is why I think the Americans now feel more pressured to actually criticize human rights violations, to give more credibility to their verbal opposition, even though I think no one really takes it serious that a significant amount of weapon shipments will actually stop being sent.
Okay, thank you so much, Glenn Deason, for joining us on the broadcast. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.